Growing up, I've always been fascinated by characters who had photographic memories like Dr. Strange, Sherlock Holmes, or even Dr. Doom. And it is because of this envy that a few weeks ago, this same curiosity would lead me down a rabbit hole of questioning whether it was possible for I to attain such abilities myself. And in seeking this knowledge, wondering whether it was possible or not, I came upon clues and documentaries confirming that yes, it was indeed possible. As a matter of fact, it seems as though there are savants out there who are famous merely because they have photographic memory, but what I truly wanted to know was whether it was possible for me to attain this ability myself, and the greed for this knowledge would result in me stumbling upon a book called Remember It, written by a man named Nelson Dellis. It is in the same book that I would be taught the technique called See-Link-Go, which made it easier for me to actually memorize things quicker than I did before, which I'm grateful for. The book might not have given me an immediate perfect memory, but it has given me a better one, and for that I am grateful. And for that same reason I have chosen to share the technique that has slightly improved my ability to grasp memories that I might have once easily forgotten. Now, the tool that the book arms us with is the See-Link-Go technique, and for the sake of simplicity, we shall dub it as SLG. The one thing that you need to always remember about the SLG technique is that it relies on your visual sense, because all the memories that the technique helps you remember have to first be converted into a mental image. And I want you to understand that the first few times that you try to capture an object and translate it into a mental image will be quite difficult, but just like every other muscle in our body, when trained hard enough, the brain can and will adapt. The reason this form of photographic memory relies on our visual senses is because our brains find it better to remember information that relies on our sense of sight and the sense of balance. This is also why you probably found it difficult to remember abstract concepts such as math whilst in school. This is why Nelson Dellis motivates us to transform these abstract concepts into things that are easier to imagine. Now, before beginning the lessons, I want you to know that anyone can develop a better memory, and it's possible for everyone to become a visual learner. In short, your brain is large enough to handle what many might call unlimited information. So hold my hand and prepare for the simplest adventure to attaining a better memory. The first section that we'll cover is the C section of the SLG technique, which was basically paying attention, analyzing every detail of the object that one desired to remember, and turning it into a mental image. A great example would be for you to imagine yourself looking at a cup of water, analyzing its every detail, and turning it into a mental image. Once that's complete, you'll have to move on onto the link section of the SLG technique. In this section, you'll have to attach your mental image into a location you can trust and know well. For example, we'll take that glass that you've been visualizing and put it on your bed. Yes, the more unthinkable a mental image is, the more memorable it will become. And lastly, the Go section will require you to add absurd things to the mental image in order to make it even more memorable. For example, I'm going to imagine the bedside lamp shooting rocks at the glass of water that will eventually crack it. And instead of the water leaking, the glass will bleed green yautja blood as though it was an organism. And because of this Shakespearean mental imagery, depicting a glass rather choosing to bleed than let go of the water that life has forced it to hold for all eternity, I will remember that I need to drink a glass of water before going to sleep. As I said, the more absurd the mental imagery is, the easier it will be to remember it, which is why I'm going to ask you to try out the method yourself. Imagine, or look at something you want to remember, turn it into a mental image that's as detailed as possible, try to associate it with things that will make it easier to remember, and then add absurd things to it in order to make it stand out in your memory. For example, if I tried to remember that I had to go to the zoo at 3 p.m. to take pictures of the giraffes, I would have to imagine 3 long yellow sticks with black spots all over them eating leaves from equally long trees, which seems unreasonable, but it does make it easier for me to remember. I could also go another mile and make the sticks hop on the same spot, just to make the mental image easier to remember. Weird, but it works. So the See-Link-Go technique can be used in 4 ways. These 4 ways were the simple association method, the linking method, the peg method, and lastly, the journey method. The first method that I'll cover is the simple association method, which helps you remember things by associating them with things you already know. You could use cartoons you've watched, movies you've enjoyed, things you've come across, and lastly, places you've been or books that you've enjoyed to read. All of this could be used to help you remember everyday to day things. The linking method, on the other hand, is used to remember lists. In these lists, one is supposed to associate one mental image with the one that comes next on the list, creating an unintended loop, whereby remembering one mental image, a person automatically remembers the one that comes next, and you do that overs and overs and overs until you've remembered all of the mental images that make up the list. The peg method, on the other hand, is a bit lazy, since all you have to do is use a list you've already memorized by tagging new memories on its mental images that you've already memorized. And lastly, my favorite by far has to be the journey method, which requires you to attach mental images on a journey that goes through a place you're familiar with. It could be your home, favorite comic book store, or even your own bedroom or bathroom. Any place that you're familiar with can be used as a cupboard for you to store your mental images. Now at this point, you're probably wondering what the purpose of the Go section is. Well, as simple as it may sound, the Go section helps us better remember and distinguish mental images we wish to better remember. It's basically the super glue that sticks the image into its linked place permanently by making the image do subtle or flashy movements that make it pop. This popping is achieved by the use of 3 techniques that fit in a sentence that says, "So grandma." S-O-G-A-M-A. The S-O stands for sensory overload. In other words, adding things to the mental image that overwhelm our senses, such as weird and abrupt movements. G-A stands for grotesque absurdity, as in adding Lovecraftian elements to the mental image to make it easier to remember due to the horror. And lastly, the MA stands for movable attribute. This refers to the movement you add to the mental image after the grotesque absurdity to help you once again better remember the mental image. It might sound weird, but trust me, it helps. Okay, and that will be all for today. I hope some of these notes might have given you a tip or two on how to better remember things at least 1% better. And with that said, until we meet again, cheerio.